Hello learners. So in this module, we will be discussing around the elicitation and the collaboration. Now, topics of this module will be introduction, prepare for the elicitation, conduct elicitation, confirm elicitation result, communicate to business analysis information, and manage stakeholder collaboration. Now, to start with the introduction, so we have the elicitation and the collaboration knowledge area contains the task that helps business analyst to obtain the information from the stakeholders. Now, the business analyst must confirm and communicate the obtained information back to the stakeholder with this within this knowledge area. So, business analyst pay attention to the stakeholders, especially to the end, to encourage them to work together towards a common goal. So, that common goal will be for a project goal. Now, if we talk about what is the elicitation and the collaboration about? Now, if we understand that with the example, so we have assume you create a business analysis approach. You analyze the stakeholders and define the ways to work with them in the stakeholder engagement approach. Now, you have to start preparing the elicitation activities. You think about the scope of the elicitation, which requirement activities suit which stakeholder. Now select techniques you want to employ, set up the logistic, arrange the supporting materials, and inform the stakeholders about your plans. When this is ready, you can conduct the elicitation activities and document their outcomes. And after the each elicitation event, you can check whether the information you obtained is accurate and consistent with the information that you already had. Now, finally, you communicate the business analysis information back to the stakeholder to ensure they have shared understanding of it. Now, working with the stakeholder can have its ups and downs. As a business analyst, you ensure that the stakeholders commit to their activities and you monitor their engagement level as well. Now, if we talk about the structure of the knowledge area, elicitation and collaboration, so we have the main inputs. So we have the elicitation and the collaboration are the needs, the stakeholder engagement approach, and the BA performance assessment. And what will be the task we have to perform? So we have to prepare for the elicitation. We have to conduct the elicitation. We have to confirm the elicitation result. Then we have to communicate business analysis information, and then manage the stakeholder collaboration. Now, what could we expect from the task? So we can expect, or we can have output as elicitation activity plan, elicitation result that is unconfirmed and also confirmed, and business analysis information and the stakeholder engagement. So this is the structure of the knowledge area of elicitation and the collaboration. Now, if we talk about the step prepare for the elicitation, so in this, so elicitation and the collaboration is the fundamental business analysis activity and should be treated with care and thorough preparation and planning. Now, elicitation and collaboration can be planned, unplanned, and both. And planned activities such as workshop and experiments and or surveys can be structured and organized in advance. Now, the unplanned activities happen in the moment without the notice, and such as the last minute or just in the time collaboration or conversation. Now, here this task focused on understanding of the scope of the elicitation, which is defining the which stakeholders, should participate and which activities they should participate in. And during this task, the elicitation techniques are selected based on the cost and time constraint. And here the culture of the organization and the source of the business analysis information. And when the stakeholders and techniques are known, the follow-up activities take place. That is setting up the logistic, ensuring the ensuring the support materials are available, and preparing stakeholders for the elicitation. And this task produces the elicitation activity plan. And if we take an example of the preparing for elicitation, so consider the example of being a business analyst that is responsible to prepare for the elicitation of the requirement for a new offender management system. Now, your goal with the elicitation meeting is to understand the main problem faced by the prison wardens who are responsible to capture offenders' progress details during the imprisonment term. Because the prison wardens work in the shift, it is not practical to have them all attend a requirements workshop. So you decide to combine techniques of sending the survey to them and schedule the follow-up on one-to-one elicitation interview to suit up their shift timetable. Now, you also want to demonstrate to this stakeholder that you understand the fundamental of the main challenge they face within their roles, and therefore you decide to prepare some models to show the prisoner journey pictorially, pictorial, pictorially. So, with this example, so you can already identify the different aspects of the such as the goal of the elicitation, availability of the stakeholder, preparation material needed, and appropriate elicitation techniques as some of the consideration when starting to prepare the elicitation activities on your project. Now, also, it involves that the stakeholders have the information they need to provide and they understand the nature of the activities they are going to perform. Now, if you want to understand the purpose of this, so the purpose of prepare for the elicitation step is to understand the scope of the elicitation activity, select appropriate techniques, and plan for the appropriate supporting materials and resources. Now, if you want to understand the description, then we have the business analyst prepare for application by defining the desired outcome of the activity and considering the stakeholder involved and goal of the initiative. Now, when you prepare for the elicitation in collaboration as a business analyst, there are certain activities and consideration to incorporate to ensure that a successful elicitation result is there, and there are referred to some key elements for this task. So these are the main five key elements when you prepare for the elicitation. So first is to understand the scope of the elicitation and select the elicitation techniques and set up for the logistic and secure the supporting materials and then prepare stakeholders for the elicitation. Now if we discuss about each and every key element, then we have understand the scope of the elicitation. So there are a number of different aspects that the business analyst should consider when they are preparing for the elicitation session. Considering this aspect, that will assist the business analyst in understanding what type of business analysis information will be discovered during the elicitation. and it will also assist the process of deciding which elicitation techniques to apply. Here, the most important aspect to consider include the following, like business domain, overall cultural and environment, then the stakeholder location and stakeholder who are involved and their group dynamics, then expected outputs and the elicitation activities will contribute to. Then the skills of the business analysis practitioner and other elicitation activities that are planned to complement this one. Then strategy or solution approach, scope of the future solution. Finally, possible sources of the business analysis information that might contribute to the current elicitation activity. Now here, the larger the number of the stakeholders involved in the stakeholder elicitation activity, the more time should be spent to prepare for the session following the formal and structured approach. Now, this includes pre-session materials and information emails, agendas, and elicitation techniques, which can be effectively executed with the larger groups. Now, if we talk about selecting the elicitation techniques, so now it is important to realize that with any elicitation activity, it is very likely that business analyst will apply the multiple elicitation techniques. It often depends on the factors such as the constraint that might exist around the cost and time and what information is available to the business analyst. Now, here the culture of the organization and the course the planned ideal outcome of the elicitation sessions themselves. It is also key for the business analyst to consider the factors such as the needs of the stakeholder who are involved, their availability, and then geographical location. Now, if we talk about some examples of selecting the elicitation technique, then let's consider an example of this consideration by looking at the insurance project. Now, we know that the stakeholders you need to elicit requirement from are used to participating the requirement workshop, and this is the technique is often utilized on the project in this environment. Because of this, you choose to plan for a series of requirement workshop instead of surveys or one-on-one requirement interviews. So now people are busy too, which makes it very more suitable to have a couple of short workshops which are run during the quieter time of the insurance monthly processing cycles. Now here you can done the lot of elicitation workshops before and therefore are personally also very familiar with the preparation that you need to do as well as the how to facilitate the workshop to get the best elicitation result. And in this example, so you are considering the cultural and what people are used to now, or your own professional skills and abilities as well as the people's location and availability. So this is the technique of one of the technique of the illustration techniques. Now, if we talk about set up the logistic, then this is the key step in preparing for the elicitation is to ensure that the logistic of the session and the series of session are well planned for the considering the following key aspect like the goal of the session, who are the participants and what are their roles, scheduled resources including people, room, tools like flip chart, And then location and the communication channels and techniques that will be used, and then languages used by the stakeholders, and significantly being prepared to understand the subject matter terminology and key abbreviations. Now, it is always good to ensure you have confirmed and agreed your approach, and also the decision with the rest of the business analysis and project team. This way, you have everyone on board with the logistical arrangement, and this often yields some new ideas that you might not have thought about. After this, if we talk about secure supporting materials, so as a part of the preparation activities for the elicitation session, so the business analyst needs to make sure to collate, prepare, and understand the information that exists prior to the session. This information can come from the people, system, historical data, materials, or other documents. Now, here the document can include any type of relative documentation which can help support the goal of the elicitation activities. And for example, the business analyst can take end-to-end draft business process models to the workshop for validation by the stakeholders. Now, then we have the prepare the stakeholder. So there may be a need for the business analyst to explain to the business stakeholder how an elicitation activity works prior to conducting the session. It may be it may also be required that business analyst request that stakeholder prepare the specific information for the elicitation session itself. Now, good practice is to ensure that each stakeholder clearly understand the purpose of the planned elicitation session and what are the benefits. Now, with the elicitation and the collaboration task, like prepare for the elicitation, so there are following key inputs and output. So if we talk about the input and output, so in input we have needs and stakeholder engagement approach, and as an output we will receive so elicitation activity plan. Now, after discussing the prepare for the elicitation, if we discuss about the elicitation, now conduct the elicitation, describe the execution of the elicitation session that it was planning and now performed by the business analyst. So there are a number of different ways of conducting the elicitation with the stakeholders, and in most cases, so the business analyst will use the combination of different approaches, techniques, and styles to obtain and complete the elicitation activities. Now, after preparing any elicitation, so we have to conduct that, and we can do it in many ways. Now, what is the purpose of conducting elicitation? So that is to go out, explore, and identify the information relevant to the change. Now, there are three types of elicitation. One is collaborative. So the collaborative is when the elicitation involves direct interaction with the stakeholders, and elicitation activities rely on the stakeholders' experience, skills, general judgment within their subject area. And then we have the research. Now, this is about analyzing and reviewing the information systematically that was obtained from the material or sources other than the direct conversation with the stakeholders that is involved into the change. This type of elicitation can still involve stakeholders and also include the data analysis of historical data to identify the trends. And then we have the experience. Now, experiments are the way of business analysts to discover the new information which can only be obtained by the performing the controlled test or study. Here, experiments helps discover the information that is required and not really readily available from the stakeholder engagement or document analysis. Now, if we talk about some examples of the different elicitation type, so we have one scenario when you run a requirement workshop with a number of stakeholders. You invited to elaborate on requirement for a new customer record system. You are utilizing to collaborative the elicitation type. Then in the second scenario, so when you review the policy and the legislative documentation to understand the new payment laws as a part of defining the requirement of a payment gateway solution. So here you are utilizing the research elicitation tool. And in the third scenario, so suppose when you are preparing multiple prototype for a new screen layout and ask the random number of people to vote their favorite screen layout, you are performing an experimental elicitation layout. So in LinkedIn, we can see, so they share sometimes they share some UI and they ask for a vote. So that kind of elicitation activity they conduct on the LinkedIn as well. Now, there are majorly two key elements to consider when performing the task of conducting the elicitation. So those are guide elicitation activity. So during an elicitation session, it is very important for the business analyst to understand the proposed presentation of the business analysis information so that elicitation session can be guided towards the anticipated result for the session at the relevant level of detail. Then it is the role of the business analyst to ensure that elicitation session is executed in a way that is goal oriented and produces the desired result as it was planned for during the preparation task. And although it is recommended that the business analyst keeps a close eye on the goals and planned result for the session, it is worth remembering that the stakeholder then the, that the stakeholder engagement and relationship are also very important, and hence the business analyst should remain flexible in their approach that and means of achieving the elicitation goals and results. Now, capture elicitation outcome. Although the conducting of elicitation is frequently iterative and it takes places in the series of sessions, it is imperatively imperative to capture the elicitation outcomes in a well organized and sufficient fashion. When business analyst consistently captures all the elicitation outcome in a formal and comprehensive manner, it builds confidence in the business stakeholders' view of how the information they have provided the business analyst is being valued and used. And then, so with the elicitation and collaboration task of conducting the elicitation, so there are key inputs and outputs. So as an input, it will require elicitation activity plan, so which was the outcome of the earlier activity. And as an output, so we can have or we can expect the elicitation result that is unconfirmed. Now, after this, so we are working on the confirming the elicitation results. So to confirm elicitation result task, so that describes the task of the checking the information gathered during the elicitation session, which is accurate or not, complete or not, consistent or not. And with any other or previously documented elicitation result. Now, it is important to note that during this stage, you have prepared and conducted the elicitation session, and you are now ready to confirm with the stakeholders, peers, and any existing resources of information that the result you obtained during the elicitation sessions is accurate, complete, and consistent with the other sources of elicitation result and information. Now, purpose of this activity will be to check the information gathered during the elicitation session for accuracy and consistency and with the other information. Now, the primary reason of the business analyst should always check the information that was obtained during an elicitation session is to uncover any errors, conflicting any information, any missing information, and the potential ambiguity that might need to be clarified with the stakeholders. Now, the business analyst should compare the elicitation result against any existing information and the result of the similar session to ensure that information is consistent. It might be required for the business analyst to engage with the stakeholders to clarify or confirm that that information was correctly captured during the session or not. Now, depending on how accurate the information is, it might be required to plan additional elicitation sessions to elaborate or clarify the any misinformation or some discrepancies with stakeholders. It is, however, recommended to try to avoid unnecessary repeats or similar conversations or elicitation sessions to prevent making stakeholders lose the confidence in the business analysis team's capability during the elicitation. Now, it is worth noticing that this task of confirming the elicitation result is a much less rigorous and more of an informal review than what occurs during the analysis stages of business analysis work. Now, here there are two key elements to consider while performing the task. So, first is the compare elicitation result against the source information. So, this element describes that the business analysis performs follow-ups meetings and or reviews and compare elicitation results against what stakeholder provided during the elicitation session to correct or update any elicitation result that may not be fully accurate or complete. Now here it may also happen that the stakeholder confirm the elicitation result independently from the business analyst follow-up. If we give the example of this, so example of comparing the elicitation result against the information source, which is, so an example could be when as the business analyst who conducted the elicitation workshop recently, you decide the most time efficient way to confirm the elicitation result would be to organize the short follow-up workshop. Now, during this session, you present the updated end-to-end business processes model and originally presented during the elicitation session. Now, to confirm the accuracy and completeness, you are doing this activity. And second point is to compare the elicitation result against the other elicitation result. Now, this element describes the further activity of comparing the elicitation result from elicitation session against any source of the information or alternative elicitation result that may exist. Here, where variation in the result are identified, it is the business analyst role To resolve this variation by working on in collaboration with the stakeholder, if there are any historical data or other reliable information exist, so the BA or the business analyst can also use that to remove any variation which is identified by. Now, with the elicitation and collaboration task, when we are confirming the elicitation results, so there are key inputs and outputs. So which are, as an input, it will require the elicitation result which is unconfirmed. And as an output, so it will give you the elicitation result which is confirmed. Now, after confirming the elicitation result, we have to communicate the business analysis information. Now, communicating the business analysis information that describes the activities a business analyst perform when communicating the business analysis information gathered during the elicitation session to business and technology stakeholder. Here we discuss that the key consideration when the business analyst formulates the business analysis information into the package that is suitable, relevant, and effective for the presenting to the stakeholders. We also can discuss the importance of understanding your stakeholder audience and their preferences, as well as the need to have clear objective when preparing the business analysis information for the stakeholders. The purpose of this activity will be to ensure stakeholders have a shared understanding of business analysis information. Now, here the key factor, the success factor in covering the business analysis information is that the information is communicated at the right time and in the right format that is digestible and relevant to the intended stakeholder audience. Now, it is therefore also important that the business analyst pays attention to the tone, style, and the language which is used when deciding to communicate business analysis information to the particular stakeholder audience. Always consider that the perspective of the audience that you are communicating business analysis information to. So, as an example, so suppose if you are communicating BAI to the senior or executing audience, that is including the visual representation and the key summaries that highlight the main points that are needed to convey. Now, when the business analyst communicate the information to the stakeholder, it is very important to understand that this process it is iterative and interactive, meaning that the information and the feedback flow between the business analyst and the stakeholder in a two-way communication format. Now, here the business analyst should therefore be clear about the audience that business analysis information is being used, is being shared with the content, the purpose also. Now, if we talk about the example of this activity, so in a practical example, so you will have a set of draft requirement that you are elicited from a group of stakeholders during your recent requirement workshop. Now, as the first step of communicating your findings, so you may send out an email with the draft requirement available for the review. And here you know that some of your stakeholders don't really respond or read detailed email and therefore decided to follow up the message with an invitation for a short meeting to walk them through the details of the requirement. By providing the stakeholders with this two different opportunity to review and understand your requirement, You are optimizing the communication with your stakeholder audience. Now, there are two key elements in this activity. So, first is determine the objective and format of the communication. Now, business analysis information is often developed to be communicated as a business analysis package, and that is to be used as a communication vehicle. Now, the information package may be prepared for a variety of different reasons, that is including communicating of requirements and design to the stakeholders, early assessment of quality and planning, evaluation of possible alternatives, formal reviews and approvals, inputs to the solution design, conformance, conformance to contractual and regulatory obligation, and then maintenance for reuse. Now here, the business analyst should consider what is the best combination to present materials so that an effective and well considered message is communicated. Now here the package can be stored in different online and offline repository, including the documents and the tools. And the second one is communicate the business analysis package. Now the main aim of communicating the business analysis package of information is to provide the stakeholder with the relevant information that is pertaining to the change or initiative at the level that enables them to have the good understanding of what is being described. Now, often the stakeholder will get the opportunity to review and ask the question about business analysis information package and raise some issues or concerns that may identify. Now, if we talk about the example, so we have suppose you are assigned to the human resource project, which has a goal of implementing the cloud-based system to manage all employees' performance and personal record data. As the business analyst, you have done you have done your first round of requirement interviews and have compiled the first version of stakeholder requirement for this initiative. You now need to make sure that the first draft is complete and accurate, and also to be true reflection of the requirement faced by all of the human resource stakeholders. Now you decide that because stakeholders are geographically dispersed, that you will communicate this requirement using the following three methods. So first is you will invite all the stakeholders to attend the presentation format, virtual webcast, to receive the summary of all the requirement that you have compiled. You will also send all of the detailed requirement in the format of formal template document for stakeholders to do the detailed review. And thirdly, you decide to invite the stakeholder to communicate any feedback they may have back to you via email or by the simply having an informal conversation. Now, if we talk about the key inputs and outputs, so we have as an input, we have business analysis information, the stakeholder engagement approach, and as an output, we can have business analysis information that is communicated. Now, after this, so we have to manage the stakeholder collaboration. Now, the fifth task of the this key area is manage the stakeholder collaboration. Now, this task describes a business analyst performs working with the stakeholders to collaborate effectively towards a common goal. Now, the purpose of this activity is to encourage stakeholders to work towards a common goal. And here, the business analyst work with many different stakeholders across the breadth of the business analysis work activities. Now, these stakeholders hold the different level of influence and power in terms of the approvals and buy-ins of the work products and deliverables of the business analysis functions. Now, the stakeholders are also, in many cases, the primary source of the information about the needs and the requirement. Hence, it is very important for the business analyst to confirm the stakeholders' role in a way that ensures the right stakeholder are involved at the right level and at the best possible times during the initiative. Now, here the business analyst will be responsible to work with the stakeholder in a collaborative way as an ongoing task. Now, it is very important to remember that new stakeholders are often identified as the initiative progress and they should be incorporated onto the business analysis activity in terms of their role, their influence, their responsibility, cultural attitude, and any authority that may have over the initiative and work products delivered by the business analysis team. And then the strong relationship with your stakeholder will support you with your business analysis activities. And also, hence, it is worth making an effort to build the sound and trusted relationship with your stakeholders throughout the initiative. Now, if we talk about the key elements, so we have the three key elements for this. So, first is to gain agreement and on commitments. So, here the key challenge that business analysts often face is that availability and focused commitment of the relevant stakeholder to participate and contribute to the business analysis efforts. Now, it is therefore recommended that the business analyst determines what level of commitment of time and resource would be required as early as possible so that this could be planned and agreed early during the initiative. Now, this agreement can be made formally and or informally as long as the expectations are clear from both the business analysis team's perspective and the business stakeholders' perspective. And then we have the monitor stakeholder engagement. Now, here, business analyst stays informed on the level of the participation and performance from the stakeholders to make sure that the right subject matter expert or other stakeholders are participating effectively. The stakeholder attitude and interest are staying constant and improving. Elicitation results are confirmed in a timely manner. Agreements and commitments are maintained. Now, after having this, if we talk about the example of this task or this activity, so in the real world, these type of risks are very common, and in most cases, it becomes the issue on a project. So it happens because the people are often expected to contribute the time and efforts to a project whilst also performing their daily jobs. It is therefore important for the business analyst to try their best to be prepared prior to engaging the stakeholders who might be under the other work pressure and minimize the time and effort you require from this type of stakeholders. So another key aspect is to plan ahead and communicate clearly to the stakeholder when you would expect to use their time for elicitation activity so that they can plan their diaries accordingly. Then in some mitigation strategies, some mitigation strategies could be identified this result, this risk as early as possible and to address them by engaging the appropriate people to release the stakeholder from daily duties from a short period of time where there are delayed approvals to ensure the approval process is designed to be as easy and seamless as possible during the business analysis approach planning. And then we have third key element, that is the collaboration. Now, the key to the successful stakeholder collaboration is for the business analyst to work closely with them in a way that makes them feel important, valued, and involved in a worthwhile endeavor. It is important for the business analyst to encourage the two-way communication with the environment that is open to the new ideas, suggestion for the new improvement, or any innovation. Now, the business analyst to create the routine of frequent and easy flowing communication channels between the stakeholders and the business analysis team. Now, if we talk about the input and the output of this task, so as an input, it will require business analysis, performance assessment, and the stakeholder engagement approach. And as an output, we can expect the stakeholder engagement. So, in the next learning, so we will be discussing around requirement lifecycle management. So, with this, thank you.